There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. And that gave people a chance to pop in. We got two more people since I said that. So it's perfect. Welcome. Welcome to this week's AT Town Hall. According to the schedule, this is our last town hall. Unless people want to push it to next week, I'm game. I still got to work, so it don't matter to me. But we can definitely talk about that as we go. We are coming to you today as part of another Ed Camp that's happening, and I'll show you the link to that in a session if you're not part of that event. I'll show you where that lives as well. Here's me. Hi, I'm your host, I guess. We're doing this through the Richard West Assistive Tech Advocacy Center, which I'm the director of, so we're glad to have you here today. There's some panel members. We've done it again. We've gotten the right side of the slide, but I don't think anybody else from that slide is here. Let's see. It doesn't look like it. I'm just clicking.
Not yet.
You and me, Karen, we're holding down the fort for all the other people.
Holding down the fort. I should, if I was efficient, I'd do things like drop a red X in front of people's faces if they weren't here. That's so harsh, though. So I won't.
So for Chris, you can drop a big red X over Chris because he kept saying he was coming, and then
guy doesn't come. I hear you. Thank you, Elisa, for putting the schedule. I actually added that slide into this just so that we had it. We're also doing a virtual Ed Camp today. So if you want to go over and check that schedule, you can. It is up at the bit.ly that Elisa put in. If you want to drop into any of the sessions, they may be password protected. And here's the password. I'm going to tell it to you guys. I feel like you're a safe group to tell it to. There's the password for everything, so it's all set to the same password. If you aren't able to go to any of the sessions, what you will notice on the schedule is that every session has a crowdsourced Google Doc that will allow you to see the notes that people talked about while they were there. So each one of them looks a little different. I'll go to yours, Alyssa. I'm sure someone put something in yours.
Yeah, I put some stuff in there. So yes, you can.
So here you go. So even if you didn't get a chance to go, there'll be some crowdsourced information there. People that participated, your facilitator. So this was Alyssa's from before, and then some notes that people took as they were going through. So you'll see there's some good information there.
And some of those notes are my reminders of what I told them I would share with them to go back and add to the Google Doc.
Awesome. So that's fine too. So that, like any other Google Doc that's shared across a group, I'm sure that will continue to evolve. And you could even have a conversation through that, I bet, as even beyond today. So please feel free to go visit those and to check out that schedule and see what's there. As the day goes on, the session choices get fewer. So just know that that's happening. It got a little smaller. This was another good kind of virtual conference proof of concept. Like it did work, and it seems to be working. There's like any technical thing, there's a few hiccups, but besides that, it seems like it was working pretty well. So, and Leslie's here too, and Leslie facilitated a meeting too. So
I did. It was fun.
Good to see you.
I tried to get in, Leslie, a little late, but you wouldn't let me in.
Oh no, I didn't see it.
It's not what she told me, Karen. She said, "Guess what I'm about to do."
Mike, that was the
Karen
secret.
Pop up, and I'm just ignoring.
Yeah.
That was the secret. You weren't supposed to tell Karen that.
But it was just funny to watch her face when I told her. Oh, that's great. So we have our AT Chat website where all this info shows up at some point. Don't forget about that, atchat.info. We will continue our conversation that we've started for a couple weeks now, but we're up for any conversation. If you want to turn on your mic and take the floor, we're game. You want to turn on your camera and take the floor? Sure. Okay. Why not? We don't care. We always start these with kind of our, did you have a positive thing that happened last week? And what was it, if you want to share it, or some kind of quick tip. So I'm not sure if anybody has anything they want to share from the past week.
I'll share.
Go ahead.
Well, should I let somebody else go first?
No, in the world of Zoom, you get to go because you spoke up first. So that's the new rule.
Two things. I've been doing weekly technology support for my town. I do weekly drop-in, and it has been so incredibly successful because I'm donating my time for free. And the first week there were 60 people, and every week there's still, I mean, I just thought it was going to die off. Even last week I had 20 people. And just tackling a lot of things, getting them thinking about new ways. So that has been awesome because I can make a difference in my own community. And then the other thing was a week and a half ago, a reading specialist reached out to me because their annual conference wasn't able to be held in April, and that's their big money maker. So she asked me if I could do a course on technology for reading issues. So put it together, and it was advertised a week ago Friday. By Friday, we had maxed out 50 people.
Nice.
And there's a waiting list. So there's already 22 people on the waiting list. So what excites me is these are all reading specialists, and they get to hear me. My preaching, and it's not to the choir because this is brand new stuff for them.
Yeah.
So I'm able to share with them a lot of innovative educational technology that they have never even considered in this time of remote learning. I am so psyched, but I also think I'm 50 people in a 1 credit course in Google Classroom is a little overwhelming. And I think I should have maxed it out at a lower number, but anyone else teach a 1 credit course of 50 students in Google Classroom?
I've done a Google Classroom course, but it was like a follow-up course to an in-person class, and we had 70. And it was, from a management perspective, I just had to be very careful about how I posted and where I expected them to post. And otherwise that's like keeping the stream together. And I was managing it just at the time where they came out, where you can add headers and basically make an index on the left-hand side. And that helped tremendously because, does that make any sense?
Yeah. Well, now they've added the classwork feature, so you can do modules. So
right, so you basically have those headers or subject areas. That helps tremendously.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else have any suggestions too?
No, I just had those. I try to stay away from the stream, and I try to post things in assignments and stuff like that to keep it somewhat organized.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. So it's 4 sessions synchronous, and the rest of the time is asynchronous. So it'll be fun.
That's awesome.
I love making a difference. Yeah.
That's a great target audience too.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Them, and I think librarians, media specialists are like that next, like when I think about accessible instruction materials or like Learning Ally, Bookshare, that kind of set, like that's one of my next. And I trained everybody like, I don't know, 4 years ago in our district, but there's such turnover in that position that like, I know that we're due again, but they were some of the, what do you mean that, this kid who couldn't read a book could have access to it in a different way? So like reading specialists and media specialists are like my next, like you trying to kind of, instead of preach to the choir, kind of preach to the people.
Yeah, reach out a little bit.
It is eye-opening when you work with reading specialists because their focus is generally, if they're working in that real reading specialist role, their focus is obviously on improving reading skills, like fluency, which is great, which we want, because ultimately, we want individuals to become better readers, but then they're not necessarily aware of that other side of it, as far as other supports that are not simply on that direct reading instruction. I think the other thing, and I don't know if this is true for the group that you are going to have or not, but in my former school district, reading specialists had a much larger role than just direct reading instruction. They were typically part of the school's leadership team. They were often very closely involved with the staff development teacher. By connecting with them, they may have more power even beyond the students that they're teaching, that they're working with, in how they support their schools. So that's really exciting, Karen.
Yeah.
I mentioned
They're from all over Massachusetts. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We have our first class tonight.
That's exciting. Go ahead, Bruce.
So a few years ago, our legislature passed a bill requiring that students with dyslexia be identified and there be remediation. I mean, which is a pretty exciting thing. So I looked up the program and I found the person at the Oregon Department of Ed that was managing it. And I made contact with her, and it ended up, her knowledge of alternatives to text was books on tape.
Yeah.
She had not heard of anything, because what spurred this thinking is you talking with the librarians. And so I scheduled, she had 30 minutes of time. We ended up spending an hour and a half together, and I did a whole show and tell. And then we have a Oregon Technology Access program here, and we invited her to 2 sessions. So we could kind of bring her up to speed. My feeling is she was going to work across the entire state. So it was my opportunity to finally try to get this knowledge pushed out.
Yeah.
So if you have anyone at the state level that's doing this type of thing, it's been very fruitful. So it went from the usual stuff that people do for reading remediation to also acknowledging that there are alternatives to reading so students can keep up with text, with the same materials their classmates. And now when she goes and does presentations or when we have conferences, the AIM or the AEM piece is included.
Yeah. Which is so powerful. You're right, because a lot of times the accommodation piece is not right on the top of their head to think about or to comment on. Or that, like you said, they might not have the experience with the accommodation piece. But it's so powerful to kind of marry those two together for those people who are at a state level. And many states have this kind of legislation now. And it's a good opportunity to get in and make some change and affect how people look at and use accommodation. So that's awesome. Very cool. Well, there you go. I'm going to share my quick tech tip of the week, and it came from Beth. So Beth, I'm giving you my tech tip. Look what I'm doing today with my double window with the captions in it.
Which I took from, and I feel so bad because I can't remember which PATINS person it was that I got it from. But
I'm just going to call it a PATINS person and just
PATINS people.
Yeah. But Beth was doing this in her webinar the other day, and she showed me to make one window open full screen with the captions running, and then open up a second window in front of it and just move it around so that now as I go to other windows, I still keep my captions visible, which is pretty awesome. And I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, it's worked really well for me. I've been doing it a lot lately, and it's the perfect solution.
I know it's something I'm going to use a lot because it's officially moved to a Post-it note that sits it's taped to the front of my computer right now.
With the start record.
Yes, exactly. It's next to the one that says record CC, and then the Zoom and the Google Meet keyboard commands for the audio and video, and then turn on the captions full screen, and then that explanation.
Leslie says in the chat it was Kelly that taught her how to do it.
Oh, there you go. So let's give Kelly credit.
Kelly.
If it's another PATINS person, she'll give them the credit they deserve, I suppose. So that's good. Anybody else to share?
All those PATINS folks they're just the bee's knees.
They are pretty great. So any other quick tech tip or any other success story you want to share before we dive into our big question of the week?
Well, I mean, I just feel like I've had a great and it's continuing tomorrow and Thursday, but a great time with your group, Mike, and getting to talk about early childhood in this context. And I feel like that's not always addressed, so it's been fun for me to go back to my early childhood roots the last couple of weeks with the New Jersey group. So thanks.
It's been great because you're right. It's an area that you don't see a lot about. And I know that must be true because we're getting tons of people to register.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's great.
I'm excited. Tomorrow we're doing on communication, and I just keep telling people I'm not going to show you guys communication apps. I'm going to show you apps that are going to help support using those apps, like they give you some. So yeah, it's fun.
And since we're talking, I'll cheap plug it. I don't care. I have no shame. I am virtually shameless. If you go to at4nj.org, go under conferences and webinars. On the webinars tab is Beth's upcoming webinars. Here they are.
Yeah, and then
tomorrow
is the communication one, and then Thursday I'm doing visual supports, which won't just be early childhood. It'll be a little more across the board.
Yep. So we have Beth tomorrow and Thursday, And then so far confirmed on our schedule, we have one on the 17th to talk about mindfulness.
Yeah, I signed up for that one already. I need some mindfulness right now. I got my candle burning, but the lighting is not helping me. So
that's our live schedule for the rest of the month so far. And I'll throw it out. If anybody wants to present a topic, we're welcome. We're happy to have you. So let me know. We're game. Give you a platform, and then we'll post it up somewhere. Yes, Bruce.
Sorry, there were two other things. That 91 questions document from the superintendent of schools was really excellent, and I was able to kind of cut through the number of other similar but nowhere near as detailed docs that were making the rounds, and actually a couple of administrators read that, and I got feedback from them. So thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, I've used that a couple times in conversations just in the past week with this idea of returning to school, because that 91 doc, if you weren't around, I guess it was last week we talked about it, there was a superintendent here in New Jersey who's also the president of the Association for Superintendents across the state. And he wrote an open letter to our governor with this Google Doc attached to, or a Word doc attached to it, with 91 questions that have to be answered before school can start again. And it was really thought-provoking, maybe not all wrapped around our thoughts of related services and AT, but it will all impact what we do. And so I think it was a really good conversation starter as we go forward. So here was our conversation starter from last week: is what is AT services, what are they going to look like when we return to school? And we've been using Barbara's message that she posted to Quiet as a jumping off point. Interesting little and then this happened. Barbara reached out to me because she was listening to the recording of this. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you were sharing that. That's great. And we had a really great conversation about this. And Barbara's from Canada, but they're working on some best practices kind of guidelines of what this might look like going forward as we move into the fall. And so I shared your document with her that you started, and she has a document that she's working through. And then so hopefully as we go into the summer, I had talked with Barbara about the idea of maybe we pull the group together a couple times for these kind of conversations. So that's kind of exciting that was there. And that, there's other bigger entities. We're all thinking about it, so let's bring everybody together to have this conversation. So with that said, I don't even know what other slides are here. I don't think there's any. Oh, there's Elisa's document. There you go. bit.ly/distance learn AT evals. That is the other document that has some information on it that we can use to kind of guide the conversation. And so I'll leave it like this.
Yeah, I keep trying to kind of drop stuff in there, and I'm thinking evaluations pretty globally.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping maybe as we get closer to the end of the year, end of the summer, and start the school year, that some of our professional organizations give us a little more guidance. Right now, I'm kind of phasing off of what we do know, and there are some evals either that, Pearson has through Q Global, or that are informal. But when I think about AT assessments, very few of the assessments I do are a formal standardized test. Right. I may use results, like if the kid has just been given, a formal writing assessment or something, I might use that information, but very rarely am I going to be giving a formal assessment. So to me, it's more about taking things like what APA has said, here are some guidelines for, not totally screwing up assessments when you're doing them in telepractice, which they say it a whole lot more correct than that. But
eloquently, yeah.
And right, they're way more eloquent than I am right now. And then, basically saying, okay, how does that translate to AT practice? So that's where, Mike, can you bring up the document since your screen is shared?
Sure. Wait, I think I type it in, so give me 1 second. Distance learn AT evals. I got to say it out loud. Distance learn AT evals.
The top part of it is, I think, the part that I need the most help with, because I know what I do. I know the assessments that I use, the tools that I use, but I know that there are lots of people that use many, many, many other things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the place where if you've got a really good, you know, expressive and language assessment that you might use, you know, that we can kind of try to say, okay, what do we know? Is there any guidance from the publisher? No. Okay, what makes most sense in terms of how we might be able to assess, you know, a student in telepractice that way? And people have added some things, which is great, but that's, you know, that's kind of, I'm hoping to try to kind of build this library of informal and whatever formal things might be out there that we can pull from as tools in our toolbox when we're trying to figure out, okay, kiddo, whether that distance eval is happening because the kid's at home, or what I think is more likely going to happen this year is I can't go in and out of schools like I'm used to. I'm going to be in situation A, you know, my office, and the school's going to bring a kiddo in and we're going to do some work by telepractice. Now, hopefully that's not going to be every kid, but I know that I think both of those situations are going to happen. So trying to kind of figure out, okay, how do I take the you know, DeCoste written, you know, productivity profile and make that as digital as possible. Right. You know, I already have the kids type it in a Google Doc. So how do I, you know, how do I take the other parts of it and make it so that it could be done 100% virtual?
Yeah. Yeah. And this leads us to that conversation we had last week. And then I had some with Barbara also, this idea that I'm agreeing, I'm leaning more towards the fact that us itinerant people will not be able to just pop in and out of schools. I think that time is gone for a little bit anyway. You'll have a home base and be able to see people in person, maybe there, but beyond that, maybe not. And so it changes, it shifts a bit to a capacity building model of how do I build some capacity in the people that are in those schools so that they can be my hands and my eyes and my support as I go forward. And who are those people in each school?
One of the things too, Mike, that we think about is if we use the SET framework in an evaluation, environment is going to be huge, and the E and the T are going to be huge. The first T, huge. The environment has changed. It could be a blended environment. And the other thing too is oftentimes issues are not seen at home that are seen in the classroom. And then
Ooh, wow.
Because
what happened to Karen?
What happened to Karen?
She's frozen.
In a very awkward space.
In a strange, like... Oh,
did you hear the noise? It was like...
It was like she just got abducted. I didn't want to say it, but I feel bad. Oh, she's back. All right, they brought her back.
Did you lose me?
Karen, are you back?
Oh. Yeah, you froze for a minute.
Did you lose me?
Yeah,
and I was off on this
back.
wonderful soliloquy. Okay, well, whatever. It's just going to look really different, the environment and the task.
Yeah, I think so too.
We're going to look at two different environments,
right.
Home and school,
yes.
And the tasks are going to be different home, school. So, and I know in our area, parents are going wild because they don't want their kids going to school having to wear a mask all day. So a lot of them are even thinking, I'm going to homeschool if I can.
Yeah.
So who knows what the numbers are going to look like in the fall. I don't know if people are having those conversations in other parts, but our town is going ballistic. I mean,
we are,
in this area.
Yeah.
We're
in the same spot. We're fully anticipating our e-school, which is a public school within our school district, which is 100% virtual, kind of combines some statewide offerings, some local courses. We're 100% anticipating that like their enrollment is going to double or triple.
Yeah.
And those are all kids that then they would either be walking into their home zone school for therapies, or we will be writing them virtually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think
that's why it's so important that we look at the skills that we have in our toolbox that would go across all these environments. Like when I think of coaching, we've invested a lot in our cognitive coaching. to help build capacity. So I think that's one practice that across all, no matter what the environment looks like, whether it's we're supporting assessments totally virtually, whether there's like hybrid, maybe one practitioner is sitting with that person and kind of you're coaching or mentoring on the side, what that might look like. But it's highly unlikely that everybody will be back full face-to-face, at least for a long time. So, and even if you are face-to-face, coaching is still, great, or, to kind of look at those practices that are flexible and adaptive that can go across different models.
Yeah.
So
I think there's going to be a big change, even if people are face-to-face, that they're going to be looking to limit the number of people that students have contact with,
without a doubt,
and the number of people in classrooms. So even if a school is face-to-face, that AT person may not be coming into the classroom. The speech pathologist still may be doing some, even within the building, doing teletherapy, because otherwise, you've got a speech pathologist who's got kids in, 20 different classrooms. That's not keeping contact down.
right.
And so, I haven't heard, I hear, I'm not in a school district any longer, and I just hear from some of my friends, but I can't imagine it looking the same. So I think, Lauren, that parent coaching that is going to still be important. Although I'm seeing some distressing things being posted by parents where they're even being told they don't need teletherapy because they don't have anything more to coach them with, which is wrong.
That was a cringing post, I think, in the AAC Motivators.
Yes.
We got out of the way one where we all kind of went, no!
Wow.
Yeah. It was really frightening to see that.
That is kind of frightening for sure. Yeah. But I agree with you, Beth, 100%. I'm already mentally prepared to not go into any school.
Right.
I just don't think I'm going to. So now I have to fall back to my fallback position, which goes along with what Lauren said, is, okay, how can I provide effective coaching to someone who's going to be in the classrooms? Because I agree. I think I've already read a bunch of articles around people around the state talking about this idea that they're going to leave the students in a room and just the staff will rotate around, because it's fewer people rotating than all the students mixing. And so they're going to try doing things that way, which I don't know how they're going to do that, but that's probably one of those 91 questions, I guess. But I think that we'll need to figure out who those point people are. Like, have we done as good a job building capacity as we think we have? And when I say we, I mean me, because I know the couple schools that I'm in, I feel like I've built capacity at each building. Well, now I'm about to really find out if I've built that capacity, if those people are going to be able to support more of a virtual service delivery with them being the point person, as opposed to us being side by side and them doing some activity and me there supporting and then us talking about it. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
I want to ask Leslie, she just posted, I think by September the regulations will be completely different. Leslie, can you expand on that? What you mean by that?
I mean, even I'm in New York, so I mean, we're still under quarantine and things are still pretty tight. But even as of yesterday, we had like an executive order that now graduations can happen by June 26th, that ESY, our summer school programs, can now be live. As long as
ours are not. Ours are virtual in Maryland.
I think New York's the only place I've seen that has done in person.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maine is virtual too.
So I don't know, and the way that it was left by Cuomo is that it's really up to the districts to determine, because right now, like my district, we have an ESY program that we run. It's intended to be done virtually. I mean, that's the teachers who signed on to do it are planning to be teaching virtually. But now they're given 3 weeks to basically follow all like CDC guidelines and get everything in place. I mean, that's going to be a Hail Mary if that can happen. Yeah. So I think most districts are going to keep it virtual because it's just not practical to be able to get you know, and I don't even know how they could set up the classrooms the way that they need to be set up. We don't have, you know, the space, and it's going to be interesting. But that's why I'm saying, like, that's why I posted that. I feel like by September, like, I mean, this executive order came out of like left field. Like nobody saw that one coming, or at least I didn't. You know, so it's hard to say by September, you know, what exactly that's going to look like too. I think, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch this all play out.
It is, and you think about if you're not seeing any movement locally about this, and it starts to become July, and then it starts to become the beginning of August, and you still don't have any concrete answers. Like Leslie just said, how are schools going to pull this together in time?
Right.
And so that part's going to be really interesting. And like anything else, I think the provision of some of these related services, and specifically AT, is going to be very far down someone's list of priority. And I feel like we're going to need to constantly nudge it up a bit and keep nudging it up a bit. And so it's interesting. We'll be in our new world where people understand the value of AT and accessible equipment and accessible instruction. But we're still at the bottom where we were anywhere, where people are like, yeah, that all sounds good, but we're doing this other stuff now. And then we'll get
and
to
there's
it.
concerns
That's
too,
a question.
like,
If people
about
are
funding. Oh, sorry, Lauren.
Sorry, Leslie.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, like, I just had concerns, like, also about, like, funding. Like, I know that that's, like, a big concern for us. Like, we're concerned about school budgets passing. We're concerned about, you know, state aid being cut. Like, that's another piece of this, too, is, like, so then if all these CDC guidelines come down that school districts have to, you know, retrofit classrooms to meet their requirements, there's going to be tons of cuts. And then that means, you know, what does that look like for us as well? So that's
exactly
another piece to consider.
Yeah, for sure.
It's concerning.
Lauren, jump in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then there was like mayhem at my house with my kids. I didn't even hear.
I have no idea what that's like.
Mayhem, what's
No
that?
idea. So I was kind of like on this train of thought of like, well, what are people doing that, you know, like we have a little bit of time where teachers are meeting and kind of doing some planning for next year. Like, I guess I'm wondering how people are planning flexibly for both, you know, are they planning online content then, and then if they have to pivot really quickly and they go face-to-face or hybrid, that they can just like do whatever they plan in a virtual setting. I don't know, like what does that look like for them? And I guess I'm wondering how I can support the teachers that I work with in that way.
Yeah,
I feel like it's going to be a both and.
Yes, I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
not an either or, that we're going to have students that, sorry, it's absolutely pouring out here. Hold on. Turn the microphone up.
So it's better than kids
tropical-
yell.
Yeah, thank you, tropical storm. We're getting like the waves of the tropical storm where I am in Florida. It's like I have 2 lakes in my backyard.
Great.
So I think we're gonna have students that are part of a regular gen ed classroom or even an ESC classroom that are not at school. I think we're gonna have some places that maybe even do that ABA kind of swap off days placement type of thing. So where, you know, you're gonna have to have basically a streamlined online and in-person, curriculum. And I don't think I don't think our district, I don't know that any district is really like looking at it from that perspective of like, we really are gonna have to have both, because, you know, whether our student is, you know, part-time homeschooled and participating part-time at regular, you know, school, whether they're on hospital homebound and participating in regular school, or whether they're just full-time regular school, but they're hybrid at home.
Right.
I don't even know if that's a category. Like, I feel like we're going to have basically kind of parallel systems running.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be parallel tracks of education. And I would not be surprised if people throughout the year hop between them. Maybe not even with the guidance of the school saying, now we're moving to this track. You might just see people choose. And I know Hillary just put it in the chat that parents are indicating they want to homeschool now. I envision you're going to see people popping back and forth. And they're like, no, I'm not interested in that anymore. I want to do it this way now. And then what does that look like?
Right. And then the provision of services, because on IEP sides, you still have to provide services for homeschool. So the bigger question is, because in the past in our district, kids had to come into school to access services. Well, now we've been able to show and actually show pretty well that we can provide services in a different way through telepresence as an option. So we have to get really inventive and creative about some of the ways where, face-to-face isn't possible. And the testing part is a big thing. I know at the state level, they're wrestling with testing because we haven't done referral testing. We haven't done any of that stuff because the way the protocols were designed, there's a barrier in there. Mm-hmm. You invalidate if you present it in a certain way. So the school psychologists are working with the state to get that language done because we're potentially planning for some sort of either reopening completely, depending on your size, because Maine is very small. Yeah. So the southern part of this, the southern part of the state is closed and the northern part of the state is wide open. It's really bizarre. So if I want to go out to Ema, go up north. But anyway, they're looking at those different scenarios. And are we going to do remote? Are we going to do a hybrid of remote versus in-person? Or are we going to offer both and let parents choose and look at those numbers and then design around that? Right. Those are the conversations that I'm hearing in our spaces, but also not to forget the opportunity is here to be designing those opportunities with accessibility in mind first, and equity in mind first, whether it's digital equity, whether it's racial equity, whether it's ability equity, sexual, whatever that lens is needs to be included in the design of that. So that cannot be lost in any of the work that we're doing. And I think, at least in my spaces, it's happening. And for me, it's kind of like, where have you been? Yeah. I'm glad you're here. We're glad you're here. Let's do this and do this well so that all of our kids are learning and happy and accessible in a way that makes sense for them and the needs of the community. So it's like a community effort. And I recognize where I am is more affluent. So then what happens when you are in a space that is not as affluent, mm-hmm. or does not have access to a robust internet or to devices or to getting even kids to engage in school or to be available for learning. So it's very layered and very nuanced, but I think there are places that we're starting, but I'm hoping that it becomes an opportunity where we get to do it really well and do it right with intention and from a place of compassion and empathy, and not from this power, how I talk, Mike, not from this power paradigm because I told you so, but to an empowered paradigm to how can we work together on a common goal and purpose that's done with intention and have these difficult conversations and not be right fighting, but to be humanity fighting. Yeah. And I feel like that's where, at least for me, that's where I'm at right now with all of this. And how do we do that in a way that accomplishes that goal? And I think it's going to be interesting this summer for us to see how that flushes out while still doing virtual services, but then coming back to school, how are kids going to access and how do we get our child find count? How do we even look at those policies and procedures and say, are these stuff that we really need right now? Or are they serving as barriers? Are they promoting windows of access, or are they serving as further systemic barriers? So there's a lot to consider.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And Hillary really put a nice bow on all of it. And Jennifer was talking in the chat about the idea of flipped classrooms and having that kind of mentality. And then that kind of blends nicely with what Hillary was talking about, this idea of our proactive stance. And say, okay, if we're going to look at asynchronous learning and opportunities for asynchronous learning, how do we do that through the lens of inclusivity for everyone? And what does that look like?
Hillary, what are the best places you've seen for guidance and frameworks and supports that if we had, I know, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Want to make one?
Yes, maybe. Just, because I feel like this might be an opportunity for us to have a little bit more of a foot in the door than we've had in the past. Right. But yet I'm not as eloquent as Hillary just was in saying all of that. So I don't know, is CAST guiding anything in terms of UDL resources? Where yes. else can we go for some kind of a framework, guidance, document, something?
I think if you look at CAST and you look at the UDL guidelines and then you tie into some of the, like Allison Posey does great work with the emotion as a tool for learning, you know, her engage the brain, that learning, because that learning doesn't have to just happen in a building. Learning can happen every moment's a teachable moment. I always remember that getting my master's degree, that every moment was a teachable moment. So how do we shape those every moment as a teachable moment into an opportunity for our kids? I think looking at the UDL guide and looking at that framework is a great place to start, because you're not just looking at it through a classroom lens. You can look at environments, or even looking at the set framework and looking at its environments, because sometimes if you think about school, when we would look at doing AT evals, where are they using, you know, need to use this tool in order, well, they need it in science class, they need it in music, or they need it in this environment, they need it at home. Well, now they also need it in this kind of platform or in Google Classroom. So that environment, we need to look at even environment, don't you think, in a different way, where it's the platform. Yeah. So it could be like that YouTube, that flipped video, or the environment is Edpuzzle, or the environment is Google Classroom. So we've got to look at that environment, and then what supports are available in those environments that we can offer and that we can trial with kids and get some good feedback on that. So I think we have an opportunity to maybe co-design something really important that can be rooted in, you know, UDL, because we're looking at the margins, but what does the margins look, sound, and feel like for everybody? Because we have to also honor variability, right? We no longer can do one thing one way. We have to be able to be variable and flip it and design workflows that honor that in some way, shape, or form, because my workflow is going to be different than Mike's, but we're going to have the same goal, right? My workflow is different from Elisa's, and we've got the same goal in mind. Our workflows are different, but it works well. What works well for Elisa works for her, but may not work well for me, and vice versa. And honoring that is we've got to get through that in order to do that and recognize that. I think if we don't honor variability and the variability of the situation and embrace it in some way where, you know, okay, we have variable ways to access school now, which now, what does that mean in terms of providing equitable access for all who may be further marginalized because the actual physical building of school is a barrier, or that actual experience of school is a barrier? So then how can we in the public school sector make sure that we're offering that option so that someone doesn't have to go someplace else and miss out on an opportunity to have different things that they may not have, and kind of go from there? And I don't have the perfect answer, and I know I'm being long-winded, so I'm going to stop, but I think we do have an opportunity in our field to design.
Yeah, it sounds like what we need from you is a mashup of the UDL framework and sets. So if you could just like help that happen, that would be just super fantastic.
Let me get on the horn with Joy. Here,
and
Joy.
I just want to put something out there.
Yeah.
Because we should all be thinking about this right now, is that along with that, and I know, Hillary, you're a huge champion of this as well, but when we're talking about this, we also need to make sure that we are thinking about the cultural responsiveness of the work that we are doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that can't be separated. If we're really talking about universal design for learning, that can't be separated out from that. And I think that there's some good resources out there where people in the UDL world have at least touched on it somewhat. I mean, one of my favorite resources, I'm like looking for it on my shelf so that I say it right. And it doesn't get to everything, but it gets to some stuff. But like Culturally Responsive Design for English Learners, the UDL approach by Patty Kelly Ralabate and Louis Lord Nelson is a good one. But then also looking at things like Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, because the brain research that she looks at is not that much different than a lot of the brain research that UDL is based on. So.
Right.
My friend, I love that you mentioned that, Beth, and I'm so glad you did, because I think it's an opportunity for us to even look even deeper within our field and look at the diversity within our field
Yeah,
And
I'm looking at the people on this. I'm looking at the people on this call whose faces I can see.
I think about that all the time.
Yep.
And my friend Tesha Fitzgerald and Miracle Milk were on a webinar with Katie Novak last Thursday, and I will be tweeting it out when she posts to YouTube. It is probably the most powerful and important learning experiences to date, and they approach things with the UDL lens. So I tend to look at Tesha a lot in terms of designing and asking, because who am I? Who am I? You've got to actively involve the people you serve in that process, and we have to find better ways to do that. I know SET does that, but we've got to find, Beth, I agree with you, that those more culturally responsive and anti-racist and anti-ism ways to do that and really kind of figure that out. So I'm so glad you said that, because that's so important.
Well said. What am I going to say except well said? There you go. All right, so we've learned so far that Hillary has a lot of work to do from what we just talked about. So let's get her on that. I don't know why she shut her microphone off. That's weird.
Well, you didn't want to hear my awkward. You didn't want to hear my awkward laugh.
There it is. Is Wednesday too soon to have that all to us?
I'll see what I can do.
All right, that's all we can.
Well, but I think even some portion of a framework that looks like what are those priority needs, because like I feel like I'm very comfortable with SET and not as comfortable like I am in like immersed in UDL, but I know it's not my strength play. Like I know I can look at AT and look at OT supports and look at ergonomics, but like the UDL portion of it, while I am considering it and I try to put it at the forefront, I know that's not my specialty. So that's where I rely on other people who are way smarter than me in that area to try to think like, how do we combine these things so that when we are doing an evaluation, I know there's lots of research about culturally responsive evaluation, but like, how does that tie into AT? And is there even research on AT and cultural responsitivity?
There's some. Gloria Soto has done some work on that, and I would look to some of the work that she's done. There's not enough done on that, and we sometimes need to look at why, like when we're looking at why something isn't working, we need to make sure that we are examining that component of things as well. Are we well, and I know to play with environment when we talk about environment,
right.
And I know it definitely intersects. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Beth, what is she finding in terms of AT and cultural responsiveness?
That we're not.
Well, how are we not, and what could we be doing better? Because
I mean, there's a lot, and I didn't like come. I'm like, I don't have. I'll put her name down. I saw her at ATIA this year, and she. So I would look to the work that Gloria Soto has done, but that there is a big. I'll try to. Let me see what I can pull up from my ATIA notes and see if I can post something. But I mean, it is an area that we need to, and if you look at overwhelmingly look at the people that are, look at us, if we're the leaders in this field, and look at us. And I know there's occasionally a few Black and brown and other people of color that are on some of our, you know, on our AT chat or whatever, but there's, you know, I mean, it's the same issues that we're seeing. And I mean, I know Sarah has been, Sarah's on here, Sarah Gregory's on here, and a lot of the stuff that's been blowing up, speech, social media these days. But I think it is important that we make sure that we are examining it. And I would say most of the work that Gloria Soto's done has been in more along in the lines of multilingual speakers, not necessarily around racial, but I think there's a lot to be learned from both components of that. And I'm not an expert, but I'm trying to work on it.
Well, I know Lauren and I have talked about this in our school district, and Lauren, I don't know if you want to jump in, but just anecdotally, we've even noticed, you know, which teams are advocating for students needing and identifying students that they think might need AAC. And it more quickly, more early in the year comes from students that come from more affluent families, white families. It doesn't happen, or it's later in the year when it comes from the students that are come from lower socioeconomic families, Black, brown families. And we had Laura and I had this conversation last week. Like, I got a call the other day about a device going home with a student, and I was under the assumption it was going home, and they said, oh no, we haven't sent it home. Well, they've had the device all year. They've been working with the student all year, and they just now decided that maybe it should be going home. And it was a family that would not be a family that could advocate for their child and ask, why can this come home? And why didn't they talk about it in October or November? And why is it like the last week of school that they're deciding that this is a good idea? And all this time that the student lost opportunity to use it and for his family to learn to use it. And, you know, that's a bummer. It's really,
yeah, I think that family advocacy, you're just right on, like what we talked about, Marby, the families who are participating in the parent-teacher conferences, the parents who are saying, I'm just wondering what else, you know, might be available to help my student communicate, particularly with AAC and, well, in all AT, but the ones that are coming to the schools and putting a little pressure, even the tiniest bit of just like by asking a question to the teacher, like what's out there that might be helping them that I don't know about, and even feeling comfortable to ask that question and admitting as a parent like that you don't know everything, because some of our families think that that's, I don't know, they're not comfortable asking that, or they would say, well, you're the expert if you thought that.
To ask a question.
Right.
You know, I think we have a really big role to advocate for those students and to support our colleagues to identify those kids and to speak up and to be bringing those questions forward with the IEP teams.
That was me waiting to see if someone else jumped in.
Yeah, putting us in a role of being proactive instead of reactive, you know, who is being proactive. And, you know, it just, to me, it's like heart-wrenching because we get these things at the end of the year. Like, I just got a referral for a student, or somebody was saying, I think I want to refer the student. I'm like, there's 1 week left in school. The student is in 5th grade, transitioning to middle school next year. He's a Latino boy who has autism, who's been on a low-tech communication system, you know, and I don't know what made, you know, I'm glad that it's come up. I would hate for it to just go all the way through, but like, why in June? Why, like, in the 11th hour is somebody saying that, you know, for the student, and what can we do to have these questions come up sooner and support these families and therapists to bring this up earlier?
Right. It's about how do we effectively build our community with these stakeholders, all our stakeholders. And I think that's changed now. This kind of learning from home has given us a nice opportunity for this too. It's changed the interactions between educators and family members, and I hope in a good way. And the families I've seen, it's been a good way. And so I'm hoping that that's more systemic in its positive swing. But we can't afford to lose that. And that might be opportunities for us to build a more responsive plan or program that catches these things before the last week of school. As soon as you said that, Lauren, I had a little twitch because I've been there where it's the last week of school and someone's like, great, we need an evaluation for this student. Oh, and it's been a rough year for them. It's been a rough year for them. It's over. What happened?
Yeah.
And so that's just more food for thought, I suppose.
Yeah, I put a link in the chat box. I knew I had this handout from an AZ TAP presentation, and I searched my Google Drive and found it, and lo and behold, guess whose name on it? Beth Poss. So
Good job, Beth.
I put the link there because I did remember like a couple of the links that were there.
Some of the links to some of the limited research that there is in there is in that. Thank you.
I knew it existed, and I hadn't remembered it was you, but I knew it existed, and thank God for Google Drive.
Google Drive. What did we learn? Google Drive. It helps you even when you can't help yourself. It helps you. That's perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So make sure you get those resources out of the chat. Well, it's 1 o'clock, guys.
Wow.
I know, right? It just kind of zips along. So, like I said before, this was our official last one that was scheduled. I don't know where people are at. If you want to take a break for a little while and then check back, maybe at the end of June, beginning of July, like where are people's thought processes at? I'll take a.
We're still at a place where we have more questions than answers.
Yeah. So does that mean we need a break to regroup until there's more answers?
Maybe.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. I think maybe it would help to have a couple weeks of activity behind us and then come back and see where we're at with this.
Yeah. Are we doing the same thing with AT Chat, or are we keeping going for AT Chat for a while? Because I feel like maybe those two things kind of go hand in hand in terms of topics and break time. And
don't we usually take a summer break for
we
AT
usually
Chat?
take July and August. Well, yeah, we usually take the end of June, July off for AT Chat.
I would say one thing I would like to consider, Mike, is if we want to come back maybe in July or something like that, I would really like, given everything going on, I would like to see, I mean, and I'm thinking of a couple people I would really love to see get on here. I'd like to see a little more diversity on this and how we can get some people so that we can get this conversation that we've just been having a little richer.
Yeah.
With some other, I hate being, I mean, I'm glad Elisa had that handout of mine, but I hate being the person that's, I'm not living it right now, and we need some people that are and have a different perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think as we go forward, maybe the fact if we plan something out a little bit, it gives us an opportunity to reach out to other members of our PLNs and bring other voices into this.
Yeah, I know Mia Laudato has been doing lots of Twitter connecting in this world, so I'll reach out to her and see who she knows that we could maybe bring into the conversation.
Cool. All right, so we've come to a bit of an agreement that we'll take a few weeks off. How about, is it weird to do it the Monday after 4th of July? Does anyone?
I'll be on vacation, but.
All right, maybe we'll do the 13th. I'll say 13th. How about that? 7/13. That's when we'll come back. It's a Monday. That gives us a little while to kind of collect some resources to reach out to other people in our networks and get some other voices on the call to have this conversation. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Really appreciate this group. I just want to say we have like a little Northern Virginia AT coordinator group to talk about local kind of issues, and Chris is part of our group, Chris Bouguet, and it's great, but this is like a national group, so I really appreciate this because it captures some more perspectives, and I just really appreciate the collaboration. All of you guys have helped me tremendously in my own thinking as I'm moving forward and keeping flexible, and definitely armed with way more resources than I can ever get through. I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I gotta check this out, I gotta check that out, but I've got a lot of food for thought, and it's just good to know that you have like a group behind you and supporting you and is in similar work, because we don't have things like live ATIA anymore.
Right. Exactly. Well, I agree 100%, Lauren. I like these Monday meetings, and I think I'm going to probably be bummed out next Monday when it doesn't happen. But it'll give us a few weeks to kind of regroup and recharge, and then we'll hopefully by mid-July, we'll hear some plans from schools about movement forward. So that's a good thing.
And I think another thing that's unique about our field is we don't have a national organization.
Right.
Like there's ASHA and there's AOTA and there's, APTA.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything like that. So, we're kind of making the rules and hashing things out together.
Yeah.
Can we create one somehow? How does that work?
Well, Kelly, that's another whole conversation. We've that's an AT chat, and we need to get Chris Bouguet in there. And yeah, some of us have very strong feelings about it.
Yeah.
Strong positive or strong negative?
Yeah, negative.
Well,
Wow.
there's some different things. There's a piece. There's the whole AAC initiative through ASHA of like a specialty certification that there's a lot of mixed emotions around that, and I think some of those things are tied in of how is the field of AT so broad that it's hard to have a national organization. There are things. I mean, there's quiet and there's other ones as well, but then you also talk about governing boards and regulations, and there's a lot of things that go with that.
Well, and in my mind, like having a national collaborative group, like a national work group, is very different than a national organization.
Yes.
Like I see this as like a collaborative work group where there's that benefit of it doesn't matter what your background is or, whatever, we all have very different, distinct skills to bring to the table that we can do these problem solving things from where we are and not have to, try to do the legal organizational end aspect of things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's different kinds of organizations. Like I'm one of the board of trustees for our group in New Jersey, and it's a professional group. It's a volunteer group. We get together, we talk, we have a listserv, we do webinars, we connect that way. It has membership, it has an executive board, but it is really a professional. It's a PLN network at our state level, all about assistive tech. So maybe we approach that. All right, we'll think about that.
Well, and maybe we really blast out more, maybe blast it out on the quiet listserv and anything else about that next meeting that we have in July, so we get even more voices.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Beth, you just said about diversity in the field of AT. I think it's the whole issue of diversity in the field of education. And I think, we're just one small piece of the education,
Right,
model.
but we at least have the power to do something about reaching out, because I don't think it's that there's nobody in AT who is Black or brown or of different cultures than white, but that they've probably run into many of the same issues that we're seeing, as I'm hearing from SLPs who are Black talking about, and other SLPs of color, and that I'm hearing in the other worlds that I inhabit.
Yeah, I just hope that we're just not a reflection of education, and that that we are not limiting people. So
I don't think any of us are purposefully, but I would imagine that there are systemic things in place from the university level to exposure to all of that has limited people, and so what we can do is we can examine it and try to work to change it.
All right, so there you go. We have our marching orders. Let's figure it out. We'll figure it out. Well, I'll put that together. I'll put the link for the registration. I'll get it together. We can start sharing that and passing it around, and we can get people on board to join us in July.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy summer, everybody.
Yes.
Heavy topics, but happy summer.
Yes. Enjoy.
Elisa, your session is at 1:30.
1:15. So I should probably go do something, right? 1:15.
Yes, I feel like you're right.
1:15. Yeah. So I should probably go.
1:15.
Jamboard.
Yes. All right,
Oh, that's
go see
right.
Elisa's session at the schedule, on the schedule from before. Here it
And
is.
if you have other more exciting things to do, just email me and I'll send you the stuff.
I want to, how can I be in 2 Zoom rooms at the same time is my question.
Open up 2 different
devices.
Devices, Beth.
Oh, I can? And then just be like this?
Devices.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just go back and forth.
You just have to mute one of them. Use
Right.
the caption.
Well, my brain
Do you
explodes.
use mute tab? That's when you need the mute tab Chrome extension.
Yeah. Put one up.
No,
put an
it's more my
incognito
brain
next to it.
ability to
Yeah.
manage.
Well, I'll record mine, Beth. So don't
perfect.
jump into mine. We're recording.
I was just going to say, if you record it, I'll put it back to the schedule. I'll link it
All
back.
right, you do that. I'm going to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for
Thanks,
doing this
everybody.
for us.
Thanks, guys.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce.
All right. See you again soon.
See ya.